Did you know that Lewis Hamilton was eliminated in the first round of sprint qualifying in Qatar, not because of him, but because of a mistake that not even Ferrari expected? What did Vasseur find that left him so surprised, and why could this change the entire narrative of the 2025 season? Lewis Hamilton, one of the heaviest names in the history of Formula One, arrived at the Lusail circuit in Qatar carrying not only 7 world titles, but the weight of a historic decision, leaving Mercedes to join Ferrari. His signing, announced as a new era for the Scuderia, was not just a sporting move. It was a symbol of ambition. From both parties, Ferrari was looking to return to the top. Hamilton wanted to show that he could still be champion, but dressed in red. However, in the Qatar sprint qualifying, that epic narrative fell apart in just 12 minutes of track time. From the first moments Hamilton's SF25 touched the asphalt, something was not right. Its behavior was erratic, the line was imprecise, the car was sliding without visible control at the rear. The engineers tried to remain calm. The radio transmission was tense, but not alarmed. In theory, everything should work. A different aerodynamic strategy to Leclerc's had been planned to extract the best from the car in the fast corner of the second sector. It was trusted that Hamilton, with his vast experience, would know how to maximize that alternative setup. But the track had other plans. The first round released was not encouraging. The sensors showed abnormal temperatures in the rear tires, but the alarms did not go off. At Ferrari, it was assumed that it was a matter of adaptation, of rubber management on an abrasive track like Qatar. However, when Hamilton attempted his second timed attempt, it was evident that there was no progression. The car behaved just as badly and even worse. In onboard replays, you could see the steering wheel reacting sharply to turns as if the car were on ice. No grip, unanswered, no options. What happened next was devastating for the team. The stopwatch showed times that were not even competitive against cars at the back of grid. Hamilton's radio began to reflect suppressed frustration, although with his usual British calm. There's no traction. The rear axle just doesn't respond. It was a lapidary phrase, an unexpected sentence for a car that, until that moment, had not shown visible signs of technical fragility. SQ1 concluded and Hamilton's name appeared in 18th place. The paddock was shocked. Not just the media, not just the fans. In Ferrari's own garage, no one spoke. Vasseur looked at the telemetry screens as if searching for an explanation that had not yet been written. The mechanics motionless. The cameras focused on the stopped SF25, with Hamilton still inside the cockpit without removing his helmet. It wasn't just an elimination. It was a structural failure of technical execution, a betrayal of the car towards its driver. The most shocking thing was that, in parallel, Charles Leclerc had managed to advance. Same car, same tire compound, identical track conditions. So what exactly had gone wrong on Hamilton's side of the garage? Was it a poor strategy decision, a pilot's lack of understanding of his new environment, or a calibration error as basic as it was lethal? The international press was quick to react. Nightmare in red, they titled. Hamilton eliminated an SQ1 due to an engineering error. There were no recent precedents. Not even in his worst years at McLaren or Mercedes had Lewis experienced such an early elimination through no fault of his own. This was something else, a symptom of something deeper. Of a fracture in the delicate adaptation process between a champion and his new machine. But above all, a warning. At Ferrari, the margin of error remains as narrow as it is relentless. The big question that was beginning to form behind the scenes was whether this had been a simple technical error, or if we were seeing the first signs that the Hamilton-Ferrari pairing still does not speak the same language. A disconnection that, if not corrected in time, could cost more than a sprint qualification. Night had fallen in Lusail, but inside the Ferrari garage, the lights remained on. The awkward silence of failure had not disappeared. Hamilton's elimination in SQ1 was not only a reputation issue, but also a technical mystery that needed to be solved immediately. It was not a question of image. It was an operational emergency. Frédéric Vasseur, team leader, was not willing to let what happened pass as a simple racing mistake. What he found in the next few hours left him completely baffled. The first signals emerged from telemetry analysis. The data on Hamilton's car did not coincide at all with that of Leclerc, and not because of differences in driving. It was something else. A structural mismatch, a desynchronization between the behavior of the car and the conditions expected for the track. Ferrari had opted for a high downforce setup on Lewis' car. In theory, that choice should give him an advantage in Sector 2 of the circuit, a section full of medium and fast corners, where grip and lateral stability make the difference between a good lap and a magical lap. But in this case, theory collapsed in the face of reality. Vasseur, together with the team of engineers led from Maranello, found the core of the problem in one word: divergence. A configuration that seemed ideal on paper, in practice generated excessive downforce that was not accompanied by adequate tire temperature. In Formula One, a synchronization error between the car setup and the thermal window of the tires is like trying to dance with a partner who doesn't keep up. Nothing fits. Nothing flows. Everything breaks. The medium compound, mandatory on the SQ1, is notoriously demanding to enter its ideal temperature range. With the high load installed, the SF25 offered greater drag than expected, which forced Hamilton to fight more with the car on each straight. That resistance reduced the maximum speed and also the heat flow generated by friction. Result: the tires never got hot enough. Without temperature, there is no grip. And without grip, there is no control. But the most serious thing was not the technical failure itself, but the collective blindness that allowed it. How was it possible that a team like Ferrari, with all its resources, did not detect this incompatibility during the previous free practice, knowing that there was only one test session before the shootout? That was the question that hammered Vasseur's head for hours. The simulations, the thermal maps, the correlation with the wind tunnel. Everything had failed. And he had done it at the worst moment, with the pilot most exposed. Add fuel to the fire. Analysis of the onboard cameras revealed something else, a visible disconnect between Hamilton and the car. In the most aggressive turns of a layout, such as the exit of turn 10 or the blind turn in the final sector, the SF25 responded late and poorly. Each correction that Hamilton made to the steering wheel was followed by a millimeter delay in the car's reaction, as if there were an invisible layer between the driver and the machine. That fraction of a second in F1 is an eternity. Vasseur then understood that the problem was not only technical, it was philosophical. There was an unresolved gap between Hamilton's driving style, more progressive, more focused on corner entry and rear axle management, and the way Ferrari configured its car, traditionally oriented towards more aggressive and direct driving, like Leclerc's. This difference in styles, far from being a strategic luxury, became a death trap for Hamilton. A trap built by his own team. When communicating his findings to the technical team, Vasseur emphasized a phrase that was later leaked to the media: "It can't happen again. Not with this driver. Not in this team." It was an internal message, but also a public statement. Because what is at stake is not just a Saturday's classification, but the Ferrari-Hamilton project as a whole. A mistake like this, if not corrected in time, can break up a relationship destined to be historic before it really begins. Vasseur's discovery was a warning signal, an expensive lesson, and at the same time a mirror of the technical fragility that still persists in Maranello. Because when Ferrari fails, it does so with almost artistic precision. But in this case, what hurt was not the failure, but its predictability. And that's what really made it a surprise to everyone, even Vasseur. The media impact was immediate. The British press went out of its way to protect its champion. The Italian, more severe, began to question whether Ferrari was really prepared to welcome a figure of Hamilton's stature. On social networks, technical analysis was mixed with emotional skepticism. Was this the same old Ferrari, capable of failing in moments of truth? Internally, Vasseur faces double pressure. On the one hand, demonstrate that you can lead a team that functions as a unit. On the other hand, build in record time a technical base that accommodates two radically different driving styles. Is no small task. It means restructuring processes, modifying setup validation protocols, and above all, creating communication bridges between Maranello and the pit wall that did not exist until now. On a sporting level, the incident in Qatar also has practical repercussions. Hamilton has already lost key points in the championship. And although it is still early in the season, in a Formula One as tight as that of 2025, any technical error is paid with interest. The rivals, McLaren, Mercedes, and still dangerous Red Bull, are not going to wait for Ferrari to find its balance. But perhaps the biggest risk is not losing points. It is losing emotional momentum. That intangible that turns a team into a real contender. Because if Ferrari fails to provide a quick and effective response, it risks eroding Hamilton's confidence in the project. And if that happens, the domino effect can be devastating. More conservative strategies, tense relationships in the box, internal leaks, loss of focus, and everything that has historically held Ferrari back in its key moments. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.